Wahoo's Fish Tacos started as a spot for surfers to grab a taco after a day in the waves. The founder, Wang Lam, turned Wahoo's Fish Tacos into a West Coast institution. Part brand, part lifestyle, all hustle. In this episode of the Get Busy podcast, Wing shares how it all started and why staying scrappy still matters.
I started within probably a year of opening the first store. I called literally my old water polo coach from high school and I said, hey, I'd like to give you some money. And he looked at me and goes, you're the first alumni I didn't have to call. I goes, you're actually volunteering? He goes, yes, because a huge part of my life in high school years anyway was being, on the program.
Yeah.
So I was the first basically major donor to that program. And then the other coaches started calling me and I jokingly said, go find your baseball alumni, go find your basketball alumni, because I'm a water polo and swimming guy, right?
Yeah.
So I helped other schools in the area because I knew that these coaches, one, they don't make a lot of money. And the kids are always short on what they need.
Yeah.
But the major programs like basketball and football, they get all the money,
Yep.
no matter how you do it. So the small sports is what I specialize in, right? And right after I started doing that, one of my customers came in and goes, hey, my daughter has this. Can you help out? And I'm like, okay, let's start there. But it wasn't about, hey, just let me write you a check. He goes, what is it that you're trying to do?
Right.
Because I don't want to help, nothing against your daughter, but I'm sure that there's another 100, 10,000 or a million kids with the same issue.
Yeah.
So how do we help them? Because it's finding a cure or make their lives better. So all of a sudden, cystic fibrosis, MS, CF, I go through the whole alphabet, right? So we started getting involved in a way where I would go to the committees and look at what they were trying to accomplish. And I would say, well, okay, if we did this instead of that, we can actually make more money. And they're like, because I basically took a business approach as opposed to looking for a handout.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden I started asking other partners, friends, and vendors to come and help. So all of a sudden I found myself spending a lot of my spare time that I didn't have sitting in these committees and helping organize golf tournaments, marathons, half marathons, 5Ks, all that to raise awareness and money.
Yeah.
And those are the two things all these charities need, because a little more awareness will get you more donations.
Yeah.
A little more donations, you can help with a cause, right? So it became this cycle. And cancer, it just kind of kept going. So I pretty much have done my share and I still do it. And the crazy part is everything stopped 5 years ago, almost to the date during the pandemic. Mm-hmm. So I had to say, what are we going to do now? There's nothing going on. What I love doing is there's nothing.
Right.
There's no fun events and there's no charity events. So a group of us got started and said, why don't we start another charity called the California Love Drop? And we'll go out and go deliver.
I love that story.
Go deliver supplies, meals to the frontliners. And we've been doing it for 5 years.
Yeah.
And it's been the most rewarding thing I've ever done in my life.
Yeah, it's a really beautiful story. And I've watched, the videos and I've read all the stories. And I, like what you're talking about it is so important in business. And that is the purpose, right?
Yes.
Having purpose in what you're doing beyond, revenue and numbers is so important. And what I see entrepreneurs and startups, largely in Silicon Valley, not to just pick on them all the time, but they need to be picked on sometimes. But, when you're raising money, right, in your deck, your pitch deck, you have to say, and this is my cause, right? Investors want to know what you stand for largely.
Yeah.
Well, as soon as the money comes in, into the dustbin of history goes the purpose, right? And that to me is the soullessness of a lot of deal flow in Silicon Valley, right? And so I'm not trying to lecture. People can do whatever the fuck they want. I really don't care. But it will be a much more fulfilling journey as a human and as an entrepreneur when you have purpose, right? Yes. In whatever you do. So what is your advice to those startups, right, who are, kind of faking it, AIing their purpose in their deck? How do you find that, right? It's very natural to you, right?
Yeah, it is,
But it might not be as natural to other people.
I think it's one of those things, because if you've never experienced gratitude from a complete stranger, You don't know how to measure it. But instead of measuring ROI and all this other stuff, when you give that homeless person that, or you give a veteran that, whatever that is, not money, but something.
Yeah.
And the gratitude, that toy, that backpack, all those things, then hopefully it moves you because it's way above what we all do. You have to experience that. And when you experience that, it changes, hopefully, the way you see the world.
Yeah.
It's one thing to say, hey, I'm going to do this. Well, because my kid goes to that school. I'm going to do this. Well, my wife does that. Oh, it's to my church. Even though you're doing it for charity, it's still self-serving.
Right.
When you do it for a stranger who can't possibly give you anything back other than gratitude, that's when you know you're doing it for the right reason.
Yeah.